Hallelujah, hallelujah. Blessed be the Most High King of the universe, Yehudah. We thank him for our lives, food, clothing, and shelter. We thank him for being the God of us and our forefathers. We thank him for being the one and only God, the true and living God. And we bless his holy name forever. Welcome everyone once again. Early Shabbat Shalom to all of you. And welcome everyone to another stream, to another review of the Haftarah lessons or the Haftarot for the year. It's very important to study, to stay abreast with the lessons and to gain understanding constantly on a yearly basis so that we stay close to Torah, so that we stay with the Torah in our hearts and our minds, as it is said that in the future it will be that we no longer will teach each other this law, but that we will have it in our inward parts. And the only way to get to that is by studying and gaining wisdom and knowledge. So we're here once again, thanking the Most High God for our lives, thanking the Most High God for my life and the life of the leadership of my congregation, D.C.B. Thanking the Most High God for the life of Chief Prince Yediel Ben Yissaskar, praying that the Most High God be with him and his family, his household, and protect them. Thanking the Most High God for all of the people that diligently tune in on a weekly basis and support this channel, support this venue, support all of our different channels that we do put forth content. Giving due respect to all of you who constantly support, not only with your views, but with your monetary assets. So we like to thank you all for donating to us and helping us out to reach our endeavors. You know, equipment and all this stuff has to be bought, and we always try to keep up with the latest technology to bring you all a good stream, a good podcast, so that you will be happy and be comfortable wherever you might be looking at these programs that we bring forth. So we're going to move straight ahead, and I'm going to pass it over to one of my mentors, the man who's been diligent for the last couple of 2 to 3 years doing and bringing you these different lessons. Today he will be going over Haftarah Beha'alotka, and I will introduce to you even one of my teachers, Nasik, Zurishaddai ben Yehudah. How are you, Nasik?
Great, Baruch Hashem. First of all, I'd like to give praises to the Supreme Eternal Universe, God of my forefathers, God of Abraham, God of Isaac, God of Jacob, and due respect to the platform on the D.C.B channel, platform, spiritual leader, Chief Prince Miriam and Aaron, the host, Chief Zurishaddai, BINAH, and to the Prince's Chief, Kohanim, Rabbinate, Marine, brothers and sisters, preach all to my forefathers, Shalom Aleichem, and early Shabbat Shalom. And I'd like to continue to say, Adonai Setati Takufi Yagi Tina Theka, oh Lord, come down my lips, and I should declare that praise. This particular session, I'll be speaking a little bit on Beha'alotka, and that's be coming from the book of Numbers, 8th chapter, first verse, and it continues all the way to the 12th chapter, the 16th verse of Numbers. There's a lot of activity going on in this little short span, and I said when I was looking over it, and I'm mostly going to focus on the Haftarah that goes along with that, which is Zechariah, which is Zechariah. That's what people look at, which would be the second of Zechariah, the 14th chapter. Second chapter. Excuse me, the second of Zechariah, the 14th verse, going to the 4th chapter of Zechariah, the 7th verse. So that's where I'll be finishing up. So, but the opening of the chapter, I'm just going to read, but I'm not going to speak on it until the end, which is a little reversal, just to give you some headway and highlight some things in it. And saying, the Lord spoke unto Moses, saying, speak unto Aaron, and say unto him, When thou lightest the lamps, the 7 lamps shall give light in front of the candlestick. And Aaron did so, and he lighted the lamp there so as to give light in front of the candlestick, as the Lord commanded Moses. All right, so that's how it opens up. Opening up with just lighting the lamp. Now, as we're going to find out later on, that the order is kind of, reverse here. And because the last portion of Nassau, we leave off with the princes of each tribe having a dedication for the altar. And they had it on their day. So now we don't have problems with stuff going out of order, where we know that sometimes a sidra might be, maybe a couple chapters behind whatever event. They might throw one event up front in front of another. So, we really don't pay a whole lot of, mind which way it comes out. As long as we're getting the information, we're getting the lesson that's being learned here. But in this particular case, this not only, since it's out of order, and the princess made the dedication, and we know that the tabernacle's already been functioning, and we know that the sons of the Aaron and the sons went through an 8-day process, and on the 8th day they actually was able to function as full-fledged priests. Then why now, after all the princes had given their particular offering, that we talk about this particular episode here? Which I'll get back to. It just something to consider. Also in this particular portion, and talk about a second Passover. Out of all the other pilgrimage times that we have Passover, which some people call the Feast of Unleavened Bread, and within that season comes in the same time. We have Shavuot, which we just passed, which is interesting. Like I spoke on a little bit about Shavuot. And then we have Sukkot, which is at the end of the year when Israel dwell in booths, and it's a reminder of our departure from the land of Egypt. Just to step back just a notch and talk about Shavuot just a moment, since it don't directly say related to Pesach, but yet we start counting during that time of CHOKMAH. So a day about true sanctification and meeting with the Creator. One of the things I like people to consider is, as we went through this particular time, that at the time when we reached Mount Sinai, at that time when we got ready to approach the Creator of heaven and earth, at that time when we know that we was 2 days in sanctification and was supposed to be ready on the 3rd day to hear our Creator speak, that He gave us some laws that we could figure out. He didn't tell us about what's the atom is, and what about the H2O or the cosmos, or what the essence of the heavenly worlds and Sephiroths, and why they came out to being, and the emanations, the absolutes, and the creation and the formation. He didn't explain none of that. All He told us was, I am the Lord your God, that brought you out of the land of Egypt. Well, we know we didn't come out on our own. Out of respect, we could figure out all the other stuff. So that marvel event, what made it really marvel? So that's just something to consider, when we talk about Sukkot. And hopefully we could see some kind of correlation with what was seen plain, that we just got laws, thou should not do this or thou should do that, on Mount Sinai from the Creator, when we prepared several months to get to that spot. Instead of telling us some hidden secret things about life and the essence of life, we can understand possibly the order of Beha'alotka. All right, and then as we move on, the second Passover being inducted, That means you get a second chance. We don't have no other day that they talk about a second chance. We don't have a second Shavuot. We don't have a second Sukkot. We don't have a second Yom Teruah. We don't even have a second Yom Kippur. But we have a second Passover. And it was so much so that this was instituted on a yearning and a request of some guys that was unclean at that time, where they would have been prohibited to bring the Lord's offering. And it's the only time that the individual will bring the individual Passover, sacrifices, korban offering that's demanded by the Creator as an individual. Now, I mean, if you sin, you bring burnt offerings, you bring sin offerings, you bring guilt offerings, you bring peace offerings, you bring thanks offerings. That's your own volition when you did certain things, or you felt strange, you don't want to get closer back to the Creator. But when it comes down to the Passover offering, it didn't have anything to do with whether you sin or not, and whether you're even thankful or not. It was required as long as at this time the Mishkan and later on the temple, with a tabernacle, rather, I should say, for the people that might not understood what I meant when I said Mishkan. When the tabernacle was erected and when the temple was erected, that's the only sacrifice that is actually demanded of every individual, regardless of their moral status. Now, mind you, you have to be clean in order to bring it, but your moral status was not a question of you bringing it or not. So, but of course, we know you got debate and say, if you can bring an offering before the Creator, then you should be in a good state, a state of sanctity. So now let's look at it. We have also in this particular portion 2 silver trumpets, and you wonder why? Yeah, talk about silver trumpets and beating out of one piece of silver, and they're used for various reasons, calling the people to assembly, call the heads, call the tribes, together, call them to move out, calling an alarm, blowing over the sacrifices, blowing when they're in battle, and etc. But these is only just 2 for the Kohanim to be blowing. No one else is allowed to blow that. Now, we might have watchmen, but it was their job to do that while we at this particular time, this particular junction. Now, why would that matter today, since we don't have a temple today, and we spread so far? Would it be heard? So those are some of the items. And why silver trumpets, and why beating out of one piece of silver? Just something to consider and think about that, because now you're talking about 600,000 men of war. All right, not counting, so you're talking roughly about 3 million people that's in this encampment around the Mishkan. And you talk about how the 3 camps to the east, 3 camps to the south, 3 camps to the west, 3 camps to the north, and that when it's time to advance, the camps in the east move first, and then the second sound, camps in the south move. You don't hear about the 3rd and 4th sound, because when you see things being moved out, after the camp in the east move, then you find that the children of Gershon breaks out after the camps of the east move. So there's a lot going on in this particular portion. And so it's good that if you have time to go over it and look at it, pretty much a little bit more thorough. Also, I like to focus on one of the areas when we deal with the son Moses' father-in-law. why, and God led us. I mean, we were talking about how we move. Before that and the cloud moved, because it shows how we're supposed to travel in the wilderness. Once the tabernacle was erected, when the cloud moved, we might be in this place for a day, 2 or 3 days, or a month, or a year. Now imagine, this is similar to get up, this is similar to tabernacle, and then you got to move, and then you go to this one spot, wherever this cloud moved to, that's where you set it up again and set camp up. And when you set it up, you're only there for 1 day, a 24-hour period. Then you got a break. Then you might ask, what was the purpose of moving if I'm only going to stay here for 1 day? What's the purpose of moving if I'm going to stay here for just only 2 or 3 days? If I'm going to stay here for a month, I might consider a short vacation there. But if, if it was a year, that's a long settlement time to break up and move. Why some spots only 1 day, some spots a couple of days, and some spots a year? All that is part of our learning curve that we had to go through. Some things, all our travels following the Creator was part of our learning and development, in a nutshell. When we go further into Moses' father-in-law, if he was following the cloud, what would Moses say in chapter 10 to his father-in-law in the 31st verse? And he said, leave us not, I pray thee, for as much as thou knowest how we are to encamp in the wilderness, and thou should be to us instead of eyes. And it should be, if thou go with us, yea, it shall be that what good soever the Lord shall do unto us, the same will we do unto thee. Now, that is very powerful, and we'll see later on when I just bring out one other point here. But what is, interesting is that if the Creator is guiding us, why would we need Jethro's to be a particular eyes and light or a guide for us? Could it be because of his qualities? Because it could be of his faith in somebody that didn't do anything for him directly, and Moses promised him something physically? Because something other than that, he never got anything physical out the deal. He got something spiritual out the deal, but nothing physical out the deal. And we're supposed to be going where God wants us to go. And Moses employed his father-in-law to stay, which I brought earlier. He employed his father-in-law to stay, but he didn't seem like he was too welcoming to his Isha and his 2 children at the time when they first came up. But that's another story to be considered and talked about amongst your teachers. And we get into this particular portion here of the 11th chapter. The 4th verse I like to focus on. If we had a plague that hit us in the wilderness, but because the people was murmuring and speak of evil in the ears of the Lord. When you murmur, we don't really know. You're wrong. That's number one when you're murmuring. Most of the times what you got to say. Most of the times, is not warranted, not justified. But yet you're gonna do it anyway. Such as people. But we're gonna move on. I'm not gonna focus on that. Let's look in the 4th verse of the 11th chapter, and it said, and the mixed multitude that was amongst them fell a lusting, and the children of Israel also wept on their part, and said, what would we were given flesh to eat? We remember the fish which we were wont to eat in Egypt for naught. The cucumbers and the melons and the leeks and the onions and the garlic. But now our soul is dried away. There's nothing at all. We have naught save this manna to look to. Now the manna was like a coriander seed, the appearance thereof as the appearance of bdellium. All right, so now, and they could do all kinds of stuff with the manna. You know, they could bake it, fry it, you know, boil it, roast it, whatever they want to do. And it would taste as whatever you thought, you know, you wanted, you know, but they got tired. But that's not the point here. You're getting tired of a food being prepared for you on a daily, every day. All you have to do is go out and pick it up. And you had to be out there at a certain time to pick it up. And you had to pick up a certain portion every single day. And yet the portion you pick up was according to how you really going to eat. And it's coming from heaven. So it's not, you don't have to worry about the food being not wholesome, sustaining. All right. Now, one of the strong points I like to bring out is this. The mixed multitude, this is a key thing, you know, that I find puzzling. That they was lusted, fell a lusting, and the children of Israel also wept on their part. Now, we ourselves talk about how it was in Egypt, how we ate fish freely. And we know we had a hard time there. We know that we didn't want that. They didn't want to give us straw. We know that I'm sure all the teachers spoke about that. But what is more puzzling is that we defending their wrong, and they were never defending us against a wrong. And that make us sound so much identical to our saga in America and various places that we were dropped off at. That we are quick to fight for somebody else's cause, but very few people will ever be quick to fight for our cause. We are, you know, and here their cause is not just in this mixed multitude. Moses was supposed to bring us out. God didn't send for them, but they came and tagged along. And yet, so they had the lust. It didn't say we had the lust, but we pleading like if it affected us just that much. So we had that much empathy for another individual that was wrong, as opposed to those individuals, which mostly was Egyptians, when they was throwing the babies in the river and beating the slaves down, that even a servant in the dungeon had better status than a Hebrew. So that is something to show a mind-boggling thing with the people as Israelites. That's very mind-boggling. So that should be discussed a lot more, you know, in amongst the various congregations. What is our goal? And not only what our goal, do we have the mindset to try to achieve those goals? And so this is one of the things here. And when they say what they want, you know, it goes on to say that what they really wanted, they wanted flesh. Now, if they and when we go further, it said they want flesh to eat. It said, when should I have flesh to give unto all this people? That's what Moses is bringing out. For they trouble me with their weeping, saying, give us flesh that we may eat. Now, if they want meat, and this is the issue, which we know is not really the issue because we see how it's worded. They didn't mention nothing about red meat. They didn't mention anything about any kind of, you know, beef, you know, lamb. They didn't mention none of that stuff. They mentioned fish and vegetation. So some people would say, well, that's why it should be a vegan. Remember the chapter opened up about that Passover. So a second Passover. So I know a lot of people who have this issue about, you know, veganism as opposed to being a person that eats meat. And then you know, they, because meat, meat eaters, and we're not meant to eat meat, and a lot of, et cetera, et cetera. I'm not going to go into that because that's not the issue right now. But we know automatically that it's an Israelite, especially if you're going to follow the laws, then you are, obligated to eat meat if you don't know more than once a year. And the Creator wouldn't give you a means of atonement, a means of getting close to Him, to your korban sacrifices, if you wasn't supposed to eat part of that korban sacrifice. All of it wasn't burnt. So, but I'm not debating whether you being a vegan or you eat meat or not. That's not my issue right now. I'm focusing on. I'm just bringing on that the people in the text was fussing about something that they wanted, but they went lusting after it, but yet they didn't describe anything like unto what they was lusting on. So could they had another motive? Was the real issue about flesh? They had plenty of cattle. We read 40 years later that Gad and Reuben had so much cattle they didn't want to cross the Jordan. They want to stay on. But they didn't cross the Jordan. So what they called Jordan today was actually part of Israel. So they that they stayed on that side, and some of the best cattle come from Bashan, that particular area. But that's something for people to discuss. I'm not going to focus on that, but these are some real issues that's going on at this particular time. And then after that, Moses cried out, and when he cried out, he said, "I need some help." So now he gets 70 elders, and when you get to 70 elders, his spirit was dropped on 70 elders. And then we know about the two that's prophesied, Eldad and Medad, the only ones that's mentioned. But it was 70 elders that were selected, and it was two that stayed out of camp. And Joshua himself was rash, and I want to focus on that. In the 11th chapter, the 27th verse, it says, "And there ran a young man and told Moses and said, Eldad and Medad are prophesying in the camp. And Joshua the son of Nun, the minister of Moses, from his youth up, answered and said, My Lord, shut them in." Ain't that something? In other words, imprison them. When you're checking on the language, it means to put them and bind them up, shut them down. And Moses said unto him, Art thou jealous for my sake? Would that all the Lord's people were prophets, that the Lord would put his spirit upon them. And Moses withdrew into the camp, and he and the elders of Israel. That means he went to hear what they had to say. Eldad, Medad. Those 70 prophets prophesied one, and Eldad and Medad remained prophets. And the 70 prophets, we don't know their name. Just those two, we know their names. And they had to listen to what they had to say. And sometimes Joshua himself, and the reason I say focus on this particular part, because the name jump up in the Haftarah, in Hoshema. And he was rash in one area, harsh, hard line. And he was jealous for Moshe's sake. Moses didn't have a problem with his spirit being dropped on to bear the burden of the people. Sometimes leaders might need other people to help share the burden, share their vision, and assist them in the vision. And a leader is only good as the community that surrounds him and supports him. All right. So Moses recognized that. So he didn't have a jealousy there, which is a good quality. We know that they got quails. If they wanted beef, why they sell it for quails? So now that you know that the Lord brought quails to them, but not the animals which they had right there. So, and they wind up having to imagine that they got to eat for a month, not a day, a month. They had to eat their way out of all the quail that went almost about 3 feet high on the ground, a couple cubits up. And then they had to gather. Imagine, you gathering quail for a day. I mean, a 24-hour day and a half. So another 12 hours. 36 hours non-stop. What kind of people is that works that hard to gather that's the quail like that? Want to eat meat that bad? So that let you know. And it wasn't the Israelites' idea. It was the mixed multitude that prompted the Israelites, and the Israelites jumped on the bandwagon. All right. And then, the Creator, plagued them and killed some of them, with the flesh between their teeth, the great plague. And that particular portion is often named a place called Beha'alotka, because there they buried the people that lusted from Beha'alotka. The people journeyed until Haftarah, and they abode at Haftarah. Now, what we don't find is how many people died there. So a lot of the mixed multitude, they had checked out the game as well, because maybe some Israelites, but normally when Israelites die, they usually give an account who died, like 250 princes plus, such, 3,000 men, plus so and so, whatever the case is. So usually when the Israelites die, they give an account. When I say the people died there, it's possible some Israelites died in the melee, but there's no accounting of how many died there. So that's something to, make you say, that's something to consider as we move on. And the final part in this particular central portion is dealing with family feud. And we can talk about the Harvey, edition. You have Miriam and Aaron in the 12th chapter of Numbers spoke against Moses because of the Cushite woman whom he had married. For he had married a Cushite woman, and they said, hath the Lord indeed spoken only with Moses? Have he not also spoken with us? And the Lord heard it. Now the man Moses was very meek above all the men that was upon the face of the earth. All right. Now, what we find out here in this particular portion is that the Creator heard the murmur of the people. And Aaron not only was a prophet, is called the prophet, and also was called, and he's the high priest. And Miriam herself was also called a prophetess. Then what are you thinking about? And was this woman truly the issue? Because what do the woman have to do with God speaking with you also? So there's something else to consider and talk about. What are the underlying issues that exist? And then what's interesting when you look at into the Hebrew, and he spoke is in the singular, but then when they say it's in the plural. So that's something to consider and debate, discuss within the particular portions and various spots. And we know that it ends off with Miriam getting leprosy, and the shortest prayer on record for anybody. Moses prayed for us 40 days, several times, a couple times, 40 days praying for us. And yet, here, the shortest prayer was heal, God, heal her now, to that effect in the book for a sister. And they had to wait 7 days. God wouldn't entertain that right away. So she had to pay a price. So she had to go through a 7-day process of being put out of the camp. Like I explained before in the earlier portions, if a woman have a child or unclean and need a separate manner of women's upon them, they're out the priest camp, but they might be in the Levitical part. If somebody unclean by the dead, they're out the priest camp in the Levitical part, but they might be amongst the children of Israel. for somebody that got a Menorah, Zechariah, leprosy, what we call leprosy, but Zechariah. They put out of all three camps. That means you outside the boundaries of everyone, and so that tell you the severity of it. All right, so so those are some of the things I bring up. But I'm going to go back just a little bit and just focus in the beginning, and then we're going to the Haftarah. In the beginning, like I said, of the 8th chapter of Numbers, what I said about the lighting of the lamps, the menorah, they got a lot of commentaries. One famous guy named Rashi, one guy Rambam. The difference of opinions on some very fine point, but main thing they figure that the dedication, this law will come up, being it's worded like this and instructed to Aaron an instruction after all the princes had already brought their offerings. And now they can prepare for Passover, the first Passover that they're going to have after the erection of the Mishkan, the tabernacle, because this is the second year. And then when when the dedication took place, it took place on Rosh Chodesh of Abib, which some books would say Nisan, which is the first month in the second year. Aaron and his sons got a chance to function. A lot of stuff, much stuff happened. There was so much activity going on in that particular day. After they was anointed, we know Aaron lost 2 sons that same day. We know also that the princes had to dedicate the altar. And we find that the offering of the princes of the dedication, you read about that earlier in the chapters about what they're supposed to be doing. They're supposed to be dedicating the altar itself. So when we go back into the book of let me see this in a moment. Just took a couple of notes. When we go into the let me flip a few pages back, just a notch. I think in the very beginning of last portion. 720. 720. Okay, 7:11. All right, in 7:11, 7th chapter, 11th chapter, 7th book, chapter of Numbers, the 11th verse, excuse me. 7th chapter of Numbers, the 11th verse. It said, and the Lord said unto Moses, they shall present their offerings, each prince on his day, for the dedication of the altar. So when you talk about each prince on his day for the dedication of the altar, that means that how many times do you dedicate a place? One time. Normally, you dedicate it once. But in this process here, and I'm just going to be very brief so I can get into the Haftarah, but it takes it's a lot to exploring in this particular portion, just on the lighting of the menorah, that you dedicate a place once, it's sanctified it once, but when a dedication of something, the first sail, when the ship take off, that's a maiden voyage. That's it. First flight, maiden flight. First time you put on a pair of shoes that you brought, that's inaugurated those things. But here it's described that the dedication inauguration is going to take 12 days. Each tribe bring it, and that dedication is for the altar that sits outside the tabernacle itself, but inside the enclosure of the whole framework, the tabernacle, holy area where the brazen altar is. Those dedications come in. So why is it now at a time of dedication that this is being told to Aaron? And then in a word, Beha'alotka, it uses kindle, but it also means to go up. You know, so if you look at it, you know, in the language, like you're kindling the candle of the candelabrum, you know, and all of them has to the nair, you know, the nair rose is actually the candles, but we know we wasn't using candles at that time, no wax candles. I would use wicks, and the menorah itself also is actually the candelabrum, which is the root word in that is anir, which is means a light, from the word candle. From the word light. So nero is up in the word candles. The six is actually from the word ner, which means lights. So now when we look at the message that's given, why would how I'm going up, lighting something with enthusiasm and causing, I'm lighting a light of a light, because that's what I'm doing, actually lighting or lifting up or raising a light of a light. And when something go up, like when people go to the Torah to read, you know, they're getting an aliyah to go up, you know. So what are you raising? And then if you kindle a flame, and the flame of the menorah is you light each one individually, but they all burn towards the center. Yet they all have their own individual wicks. And it was just wicks involved with oil. So where was the Aaron and the tribe of Levi, though the princess brought up the offering and gave it to Aaron, you know, he the one actually got to make sure it goes on the altar and sprinkle it. The priest deal with that. But the princess brought it for the dedication. And same with every other offering. When the people give it to him, the priest handle that. But theirs was called a dedication, and all you did was take a part. So theirs was actually referred to, and they had a day that's ascribed for them for a dedication. But the tribe of Levi does not have a day dedicated for the very item that they entrusted to protect. So, and Aaron being the head of that particular tribe, you know, we'll feel a little way where this come to him at this time, where the tribe of Levi has no hand in dedicating, we're seeing. And then the very first day of the dedication, the candlesticks is not lit by Aharon, it's lit by Moses that day. And then when do the candlesticks be lit? The candlesticks be lit normally, the menorah actually, you know, the candelabrum, I should keep saying, candelabrum for those who might not realize what I'm speaking about. The candelabrum should be lit in the evening. So therefore, in the day of the dedication, and then Aaron got ready to function, who lit the candlestick that day? The great candelabrum? Moshe himself. He lit it. And then after he lit it, after Aaron was finished, you know, and offered the offering, then they was able to function. So at the very first day, he couldn't even do that. And then, so now, what part that he has where he's sharing a part, but his part is not considered a dedication. Though he's part of the dedication, he's not considered that. It's to consider the tribe and their prince dedication to the tabernacle. And the tabernacle took a 12-day process. So it's a lot more. I'm trying to be a little bit more brief too on this subject, but I would like, you know, if possible, y'all to discuss the various nuances, because one of the things too, just to consider in a nutshell, is that Aaron himself, when it comes to the menorah, it's only lit at night. So Moses lit it that morning. So if he lit it that morning, the earliest Aaron could have got to it is later on and the night getting ready to go out, the afternoon. The sacrifice has already been done. So even his job, he's working, that particular job that's for the priest is only be done. And yet we know that their job outside gonna be continually going on. But this was a unique thing when it comes down to the candelabrum. But so Moses let them know that this is what they're gonna have and do. They're only gonna belong to the priest perpetually. Now, some people think that, Moses put enough oil in there to last for 24 hours. That's one viewpoint. And the other viewpoint is that I'm not going to tell you which one to say which. One viewpoint is that he only put it in for that, period of time that he needed, so that when it came to the evening, that Aaron got a chance to do it on that same Rosh Chodesh. That's the debatable issue in itself. But the main thing is that we know from the second day onward that Aaron himself had to not only make sure the Ner Tamid, which was referred to as the light of continual light burning, which you might see in some synagogues over the altar, over the bema part, I should say altar, the bema part, the high place of pulpit, that you might see a light burning over there where they take the scrolls out. Those supposed to be reminiscent of that particular light, but those light, the menorah is lit, the candelabrum is lit in the evening. And what Aaron do, he had to light it, and his descendants gonna have to light it, when they become the high priest. And at the end, he got to clean it up. So this is a explicit view. So whereas the dedication of the princes every day, which is a 12-day process in order to dedicate the tabernacle, took a 12-day process, because each day, no matter whether I was 5th, whether I was 7th, whether I was 1st, my dedication is essential, because this is still a dedication, because the Creator stated that this is a dedication, and it's going to take, and this is my day to make a dedication, so that it's official, because it's coming straight from the Creator. The Creator didn't say that concerning that the candelabrum. So Aaron himself, where he took part of the dedication, which everybody brought on their day, this is solely done by the priest. Their dedication is done on the outside of the tent, whereas his is done inside. So he did it with such enthusiasm. So in other words, he got to be enthused. So in order for me to really lift up a flame, I got to have a flame burning within myself. I got to be already about that myself. Be a light, be a flame. As when a person says, okay, I don't have no more zeal for this, no more zeal for that, their flame starts to diminish. But I'm so much for that. So I'm looking at the time here. So I'm gonna go straight on. There's a lot more to be discussed on this opening verse, but with the verbiage and everything like that. But I'm going straight to the Zechariah, the Haftarah that's done in this particular portion in time. Now, in Zechariah, what we have here is that you got several prophets, Haggai, you got, Ezra, Zechariah, all these guys here. They were prophets, and had some words from the Creator. And we know also what makes this different between the prophets that's in the land of Israel, because you had prophets like Isaiah, prophets like Jeremiah, as opposed to these three guys. Now, these three guys, Haggai, Ezra, and Zechariah, they was in Babylon, and they came back to Jerusalem. All right, we know that they came back to Jerusalem, so they had input in the building of the second temple itself. Whereas, but what makes their prophecy weaker? Because they have a saying that the prophecy of the guys like Isaiah and Jeremiah, when you get prophecy in Jerusalem, or in the land, you're on a higher level than those guys that get prophecy from God outside the land, like Daniel, like Ezekiel, and like these particular individuals that got their prophecy outside the land. So, and what's also interesting with this particular portion is that this book, Zechariah, the Haftarah, is read during Hanukkah time, dealing with the candelabra, the menorah. So there's very few Haftarahs that's actually read twice within a year. So the Shabbat during Hanukkah time is when they read this Haftarah again, dealing with the candelabra. So now, to get back to why they say the prophecy was not as good and not on the same level that those prophets like Jeremiah and Isaiah, not because of the length of the books that they wrote, because Ezekiel had a very extensive book too. But the difference was that Ezekiel and them had visions that need to be explained. Isaiah and Jeremiah, when they saw things, they understood. They didn't need no explanation for it. But even the great Ezekiel, Haggai, Zechariah, they're having visions that's divine, but they need, and even Daniel having visions, but he needs some explanation about what I'm looking at. I can see this, but I don't understand that. So that's what they look at in the difference in the level of the prophecy. So we're going to go straight through second chapter, 14th verse. You got Chief? All right, well, let me pick it up from here. Okay. Second chapter, Zechariah, 14th verse.
We are going to the second chapter.
Yeah, second chapter.
Zechariah, verse 14.
14.
Hallelujah. One second here. It reads,
All right.
Sing and rejoice, O daughter of Zion, for lo, I come, and I will dwell in the midst of thee, saith Yehovah. And many nations shall join themselves to Yehovah in that day, and shall be my people, and I will dwell in the midst of thee. And thou shalt know that Yehovah of hosts hath sent me unto thee. And Yehovah shall inherit Judah as his portion in the Holy Land, and shall choose Jerusalem again. Be silent, all flesh, before Yehovah, for he is aroused out of his holy habitation.
All right, now most people think the Creator went to sleep. And when we see injustice going so long, we say, well, people say, well, where's God? You know, and if you're the God of people didn't look at Israel as being the people of God when you in captivity, when you're doing bad, you know, so you can't be the people of God and you're being treated like that. You can't be the people of God and you're doing so bad. So here it is. Just like we had a mixed multitude coming out, other people are going to try to attach themselves on. Just like Moses wanted his father-in-law to come with us, other people are going to attach themselves on. But the Creator going to say, look, I'm going to let them know that I'm really in the midst of you. All right. Third chapter.
Chapter 3 verse 1 reads, And he showed me Joshua the high priest standing before the angel of Yehovah, and Satan standing at his right hand to accuse him. And Yehovah said unto Satan, Yehovah rebuke thee, O Satan, yea, Yehovah that have chosen Jerusalem rebuke thee. Is not this man a brand?
All right. First of all, you're talking about the angel, all right? You know, the angel of the Lord, you know, and Satan, the angel of the Lord, and Satan standing at his right hand to accuse him. And the Lord said unto Satan, the Lord rebuked thee. Now, this is the Creator, because he the one could actually say, you're forgiven or not forgiven. The angel don't really have that authority to say that. So the verbiage is a little different. Even though the angel's there, he can't make the verdict about we have this habit amongst a lot of my people. Well, God understands. But do you understand? It's never a question of God's intelligence or God's comprehension. It's always our comprehension, our understanding, and our intelligence is always in question. So here it is that when we read this particular thing, even though the angel is there, it's the creator rebuking the adversary, the accuser. We ain't thinking about no guy with a pitchfork, for those who might be listening, where, spike, things and this and that and the other, or horns. But, just Satan means an accuser or adversary, a foe. All right. But I'm aware about some of the other concepts that people have in reference to that. But this is not what we're talking about there, even though it's on a spiritual level here. But we continue the third chapter and say,
verse 2, and Yahuwah said unto Satan, Yahuwah rebuked thee, O Satan, yea, Yahuwah that have chosen Jerusalem rebuked thee. Is not this man a brand plucked out of the fire? Now Joshua was clothed with filthy garments and stood before the angel. And he answered and spoke unto those that stood before him, saying, Take the filthy garments from off him. And unto him he said, Behold, I cause thine iniquity to pass from thee, and I will clothe thee with robes. And I said, Let them set a fair mitre upon his head. So they set a fair mitre upon his head, and clothed him with garments. And the angel of Yahuwah stood by. And the angel of Yahuwah...
All right, before we get to 6. All right. It didn't say that the guy didn't have some problems. It didn't say he didn't look, perfect. That it shows and give a testimony that if you're the priest, your clothes are for glory and splendor. So now it's how you look outwardly so bad. And you're supposed to represent holiness when you wear the zitz that says holiness to the Lord. So how do your outfit look so terrible? And it's not just as tatted, not just as just torn. It's not about torn garments. It's about filthy garments. So what made you so defiling? At this particular time, and you're supposed to be the priest. When a priest washes a lot, and every time you go from one spot to another, he got to start off washing, and he got to finish off washing every step of the way of his process. When he's functioning on a daily basis. So how is it that you are filthy on the outside? So that means that God judges the reins of the heart, but sometimes even your heart may be right, but your environment may not be conducive to where your heart should be at.
Right.
All right. But let's read a little bit further. That's 6 verse.
To verse 6. It reads, And the angel of Yahuwah forewarned Joshua, saying, Thus saith Yahuwah of hosts, if thou wilt walk in my ways, and if thou wilt keep my charge, and will also judge my house, and will also keep my courts, then I will give thee free access among these that stand by. Hear now, O Joshua the high priest, thou and thy fellows that sit before thee, for they are men that are assigned. For behold, I will bring forth my servant the shoot. For behold, the stone that I have laid before Joshua, upon one stone are 7 facets. Behold, I will engrave the graving thereof, saith Yahuwah of hosts, and I will remove the iniquity of that land in one day. Verse 10. In that day, saith Yahuwah of hosts, shall ye carry every man his neighbor under the vine and under the fig tree.
All right there. All right. Now they talk about the menorah again, 7 facets. They talk about a shoot too. Now it's always ambiguous about what they mean by the shoot, the zamah, and you find it, in various books and like that. So and that's why you get all this other messianic different interpretations, which I'm not going to focus on here, but I'm gonna try to keep it more of on a plain meaning, a shot style in that sense, and when it comes to that. But one of the things is that it points out similarities to the actual sidra, a 7 facets, that the menorah has 7 stems or wicks that burn towards the center. Also 7 major characteristics, of a human being. Those that deal with the different characters that's enumerated, and Sephiroth, which means 7, Kesek, Gevurah, Koj, and all that kind of Nasik, etc. That you have 7 different characters of a human being. All right. But then when it talks about a stone, all right, the priest himself wore a stone, but a stone is used later on as a signet of truth for one of the leaders here. But the priest also had a breastplate, and the major stone is the onyx stone, even though he had 12 stones on the breastplate. But the breastplate itself, on the top of that, it had it was hooked up to an onyx stone in front and back. All right. And when the onyx stone also supposed to represent Yosef. But that's another story. So we're gonna go into the 4th chapter. We got 7 verses in the 4th.
Chapter 4 reads, And the angel that spoke with me returned and waked me, as a man that is awakened out of his sleep. And he said unto me, What seest thou? And I said, I have seen, and behold, a candlestick all of gold, with a bowl upon the top of it, and its 7 lamps thereon. There are 7 pipes, yea, 7 to the lamps, which are upon the top thereof, and 2 olive trees by it, one upon the right side of the bowl, and the other upon the left side of thereof. And I answered and spoke to the angel that spoke with me, saying, What are these, my Lord? Then the angel that
Right
spoke...
there. Hold on, before we get to the 5th. That's why they say it's on a different level. When the Creator told Jeremiah, look to the north and what you see. He said, I see the part. So where it's coming from the north. And he understood exactly what it was. All right. It's always prophets, when he asked Ezekiel, on the other hand, who are these dry bones? Or could these bones live? I don't know. And this is the whole house of Israel. Oh, I didn't recognize him. But yet I'm over in Babylon. I'm meeting with chief men of Israel that was captives like me and a council. So bringing out a point about the level of the prophecy and the understanding that's being interpreted here, and to show you that, and he said, "What are these, my Lord?" And the Creator usually don't ask you a question that's outside of your capability of understanding. All right. So when we get down to this 5th verse, we're gonna finish out to the 7th. Yeah, that's where it ends at.
Verse 5 reads, Then the angel that spoke with me answered and said unto me, Knowest thou not what these are? And I said, No, my Lord. Then he answered and spoke unto me, saying, This is the word of Yehovah unto Zerubbabel, saying, Not by might nor by power, but by my spirit, saith Yehovah of hosts. Who art thou, O great mountain, before Zerubbabel? Thou shalt become a plain, and he shall bring forth the top stone with shoutings of grace, grace unto it. Hallelujah.
All right there. All right, grace. All right, so that's how it ends at. In other words, we got some hope there. But these are the people that came back under the 2nd Commonwealth, and they had a lot of problems coming back on because Cyrus gave them the aid to go back and build the temple, although that was willing, and allow them provisions to go back. But yet, when they was allowed provision to go back, everybody didn't come back. And then they had a lot of, a hiatus because of the people in the land. So they had to stop building for a while. And under Darius, the first of the Persians, about 4 years or so, give or take, that they was able to finish the temple itself. But they had a lot of, issues going on when they came back. And they never looked at themselves as being really sovereign. And then what's ironic is that when they had the temple, and when they did get the temple back, and at the particular time, that they didn't have the Ark of the Covenant in there. And one of the things one of my sons had asked me a while back, and I think it'd be good to share, is that what it means to praise God in His holy sanctuary, and in concerning the founding of the 50th Psalm that's written by King David. We know David set up, he even had a psalm, the dedication for the house of God, and yet we know automatically he wasn't able to build the house. His son built the house. He had set up singers and everything else for the house of God. So he had a lot of stuff for the dedication for the house of God. What we find too, and what I shared with my son, I said, You know, it's ironic that nobody really asked me questions like that before all the years, but I'm gonna share this with you. That don't you know that most people don't think about it much. That we talk about the dedication here, about the tabernacle, and I mean the dedication of the altar, and we talk about Aaron's role in the dedication, and also what is given to him, where he solely is dealing with a particular thing that's greater than the dedication, because he do it every single day, and it's passed on to his children. Where them guys did it once, is that they had the Ark of the Covenant in the Mishkan. Ever since the Philistines took the Ark of the Covenant, it never went back into the tabernacle until David got it back. So how many decades was that? Saul reigned for so many years. The ark was taken before Saul became king. All right. And David went to get it back after he became king. And when he got it back the first time, it was a problem. He said, well, send it over there to Obed-Edom. I don't want no parts of it. I'm mad with God. And after he got it back 6 paces, he started offering sacrifice and singing songs and stuff like that there, because you cannot really praise to your own highest at the greatest of your ability if the very contract and the pact is not there. So David recognized that all this time, the Ark of the Covenant is not where it needs to be. So we only settle with separate, a partial observance. The tabernacle is not only a fragment of itself. That's why the people that came back from Babylon, those that seen the original temple and see this new temple, it was pale in comparison. It was no grandeur in it. And also, they didn't have the Ark of the Covenant. So we understand when we talk about the olive bowls and beaten olives, that when we talk about the menorah itself, it's one of the oldest symbols for the nation of Israel. And we ourselves, we got to be like Aharon, the very enthusiasm of getting up and doing the same routine every day, not just being able to light the lights, but take pleasure in cleaning out the candelabras and replacing it with fresh oil. That was out there, fresh wicks. So that's what our job was, you know. So if you got something I would have said, any mistakes, they're my own. And with that, I would say, you know, Shalom Aleichem and Shabbat Shalom.
Hallelujah. Torah Rabbi Nasik for the words, for the inspiration, and for everything. Now, I have a question, right?
Yes.
When the quail was piled up, was the quail alive or was it dead?
One, it couldn't be dead, because if it was dead, then it would be too late and we wouldn't be able to eat it, you know, if it died of itself. All right. All right. It's just that, and it's been known that quails fly so far and take a long flight that they become too weak to really fly again once they land.
Right.
Very few birds could fly over a large body of water and then say, okay, I could just jump, you know, and take off again fresh. So, but they, you know, so evidently they was there. They wasn't dead. That's
Gotcha.
why it took them a day and a half.
Right. I you know, I taught that lesson last week, so I said they were alive. But you know, sometimes like certain things are not clear. They're not left there. Tell us in one way or the other. But we do with Torah. We do we could surmise that certain outcomes of what things would be, because we know we can't eat an animal that died of itself, right? So,
Exactly.
right, okay.
And that means everybody was eating it too.
And
So the only
everybody
ones
was,
who was slain was the ones that, you know, had it, you know, I mean, lusted after, did, you know, they got a lot of commentaries on about, you know, some of them ate it raw, you know, whatever the case is. But, you know, the Creator gave us the most leanest meat you could get, which is quail. That's one of the leanest birds and fowls you want. And it shows, but it is a testimony that it wasn't about the beef. You know, it wasn't about where the beef was, it's about other issues.
what do
You
you,
know, some, you know,
why do you think that even after everything that the Creator showed them, that they spoke about Egypt as if Egypt was a paradise? Because that's what it seemed like, you know. What do you think is the mental
Well,
mindset there?
well, the thing was, when we left Egypt, while we was in Egypt, what laws we had to follow? Just the law what the king talk about. That's it. You can marry who you wanna, sleep with who you wanna,
Right,
go about praying who you wanna.
right,
That didn't matter. You know, when you left, before we left out, we had a rule to start off. We had a calendar, we had an appointment, and we had a mission. You know, and then we got to die. You know, we got all got to die to sanctification. We got obligations. We can't do this no more. We can't do that no more.
too many restrictions
And
to them.
and it, oh yeah. So now, we came up with cattle. Now you got the tabernacle standing. Everybody just can't slaughter animals like you used to. You only, how many priests we got at this time? You only got 22,000 Levites. Actually, 22,200 something, 22,300 technically, but you know, that's another story. But 22,000 as a round number for the Levites. So you got, millions of people out there. How much meat you gonna eat during the week? And we talking about sacrifices.
Right.
So now I can't slaughter like I want to. I gotta bring it to the door of the tabernacle.
So there you have it, right.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting. You know, those things are the things that sometimes you don't think about, and then it's the details, right? As you keep practicing and going over this over and over every year, you see the benefit of it because you catch things year by year that you might have not caught, you know. And you could have been doing this for,
Definitely everybody does.
yeah, you could have been
And
doing this
one of
for
the benefits
25,
is
30 years. And go ahead, Prince.
even though the benefits is that Torah is something you grow in but never grow out. You know, if you grow out of something, then it's no longer necessary for you. But if you grow in something, that means that it's still life sustaining for you. And that's why we used to say in the days that we don't have no graduate course. We have a lot of dropouts though during the course, but we don't have a graduate in the course, because it's constantly, a new level. Even when I'm elaborating on stuff, I gloss over a lot. But not only just for time, but also, I try to focus on one particular element of the particular Sidra or the Haftarah. But
Right.
it's so much going on in there about people. People are just like people today. And that's what people fail to realize. Just like the mindsets and the psychologies and the different interests and questions that we have today, they had those same issues back then. It's just that it wasn't televised as wide. That's pretty much it.
Hallelujah. Yes, it is. I firmly agree with what you just said. Because we're going through Zechariah right now. When you read what the Most High God is telling he's telling Zechariah to tell the people, like, if you had listened to the prophets, he said, and the prophets came to you with the messages. You know, you guys were oppressing the widow, the fatherless, the stranger. You guys were shedding innocent blood. You guys were doing all the things that I told you not to do. That's how you ended up in exile in Babylon, And it just shows us that today our people do the same thing. You look on social media and they into everything. They do everything, to the max. So, it's
Yes,
the same thing.
and the more spiritual, sometimes people be it's it's a strange things, but the more intelligent you got, the more wicked you could possibly be.
Right.
And the more spiritual you try to assume, or achieve, the more spiritually corrupt you can possibly be as well.
Right.
And we get a glimpses with the priest Joshua, which is different because he's being exonerated in this particular Haftarah, where the Joshua in the book is being a little bit admonished.
Right.
In the Sidra, because he wanted to imprison somebody, And yet, on the other side, in Haftarah, this Joshua is being, acquitted of a particular charge.
Right.
So it's a lot of things going on. So, like I said, hopefully, there's some kind of justice to it.
What do you think?
All right.
What do you think is the benefits of? I kind of. I mean, we kind of discussed that, so I won't ask that again. I was going to ask you the benefits of doing the portions year by year, but we kind of discussed that previously, so we don't got to go into that again. Okay, just thanking you once again, Nasik, for your patience and your time and your dedication to the channel and to bringing forth the message and the word of God to God's people. Hallelujah.
Amen. Hallelujah. Amen.
May the
Sure.
Most High God bless you.
All of us.